Hello and welcome back to RamsTalkPodcast. And we're here with a really, really exciting signing today. Patrick Agyemang. I mean, I don't think Derby fans expected us to spend a lot of money this summer. You know, last summer we didn't really spend a huge amount. We spent a little bit in January, but here we are splashing upwards of 5 million reported on a striker from the USA. He's never played outside of America, but he looks very, very exciting all the same. So joining me today is Apple TV and DAZN commentator Jessica Charman, fresh from the Club World Cup. How you doing, Jess?
I'm doing very well. It's funny because I thought this was going to be my rest weekend. I have been in 7 states in 14 days commentating the Club World Cup. But you know, when you get the door knocking to talk about one of the best people in football or soccer, as they call it here, you want to make sure you give them their time of day. So I'm really happy for Pat, which I'm sure we're going to get into.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I want to touch on first is I don't understand how the American system works, right? I've tried it on Football Manager. I have absolutely no clue. So I mean, we were chatting beforehand. You were saying he came from D3, which I'm guessing was like a university college sort of state game. He went up to D1, which I think is also a university college state thing. And then he ended up at Charlotte. Talk me through that. How did that happen?
Yeah, so there's kind of now we're seeing more mirrors with the European system where academies are getting better and more established and players are choosing to go professional early on. But there's still a huge window in the US for players that maybe aren't ready to go professional at 16, 17, 18 that opt to go to university as a place to not only develop as a footballer, but also get an education. I think it's a really smart way. How often do we see players that invest all their life resources into being footballers in England, then they're cut short at 17, 18. They've got no education to fall back on, those kind of things. So it does have a good role in America. So with Pat, he kind of decided pretty late that soccer, football is what he wanted to put all his eggs into. And therefore, when it came to recruiting, he didn't have the highlights. He didn't have the recruiting profile that it takes to go to Division 1, which is the big schools. They're the schools that have the most opportunities for resources, the most opportunities for media presence, most opportunities to go professional. So he went to Division 3, which is the lowest of the 3 NCAA tiers. Now, there's a lot of other things, JUCO, all of that. We're not going to get into that. Let's just pretend NCAA is the only one. What you can do is you can go to those schools, build up your reputation, and then transfer, which is when, kind of like a signing, you're able to move to a different university. You're able to transfer your playing career and your education to a different school, which is what Pat did to go Division 1. And then the draft, which gets even more complicated, where the MLS teams are able to, based on where they finish, based on where they negotiate the draft picks, they get picks where they can basically find somebody and they get the rights to sign that player. So Charlotte has been known in their short existence. Obviously, Charlotte's only in year 4 of being an MLS expansion team. They've been known to really rely on the draft, and they did a really good job. They traded up to get a higher level pick, and then Pat was drafted to Charlotte FC, where he obviously made a mark very, very quickly. Now, as you can expect, you have bums of drafts, which don't work out very well. They're college kids adjusting to the pro game, but Patrick did a very good job of adjusting. And he's one of the only players in history to have started as a Division 3 player and ended in the pro game. So I think that says a lot about his resilience and a lot about his mentality, that a lot of players end up at D3 and kind of think, I've got no chance of growing. I've got no chance. I'm just here to get an education. Patrick Agyemang kind of proves all those people wrong.
Feels very Jamie Vardy, doesn't it?
Yes. Or like, as a Reading fan, Dave Kitson. You know what I mean? Like yeah. stocking supermarket shelves and ending up as a professional football player. So we're here for the rags to riches of the story of Patrick Agyemang.
Absolutely. Derby had a player called Malcolm Christie who does a lot of the comms now, and he sort of went down a similar route. He went from, you know, non-league, as you said, stacking shelves, and just a few months later he was scoring goals for Derby in the Premier League. So let's hope that Patrick Agyemang's got that similar sort of impact. I mean, let's talk about him as a player. So you say he came from D3, he didn't have everything sort of going for him at the start. He's worked his way up to Charlotte. I mean, he hit 10 goals last year. He's on 8 goals so far this year. What sort of striker is he?
I mean, when you see a striker of his build, the first thing you're going to talk about is his physical presence. And I know a lot of people will say you shouldn't focus on that. And he does have other attributes, but it's difficult to ignore the fact that he is strong, he is tall, he's a physical presence, he makes great runs. He is still very raw. He'll be the first player to tell you. I had the privilege of interviewing him like a year and a half ago when he like kind of really exploded and people were making the illusion that maybe he'd be a US men's national team player one day. And he'll be the first to tell you that he still needs to work on his touch. He still needs to work on maybe his decision-making in the final third, but he's definitely grown and matured in that factor. He's a player that's going to stretch back lines. He's a player that's going to occupy a lot of a defender's mindset. I think what was so funny with Charlotte is for the first maybe 6-7 months of his time with the first team, a lot of the time he was used as a super sub, and you could see defenders would be crapping their pants because you're exhausted, you're tired, and then you bring on a player that's going to stretch you with that capability. I think his finishing has improved remarkably. His decision-making with finishing. A lot of the time I thought that maybe his composure in front of goal was lacking in some moments. He'd get through 1v1 and then maybe wouldn't pick the right finish. It would be too close to the goalkeeper, those kind of things. But that's definitely improved. I still think he's a raw player, but he's going to give defenders things to think about. And it's funny as someone that grew up watching the Championship, now watching League One, woe is me. But I think he fits a European or an English style of play just because of he is that typical big center number 9 that's going to be able to make runs in. And I think he would thrive with having another player up there with him, though. I don't think he can lead the line by himself. I think he needs other players to help bring him into the forward attack.
Well, luckily for him, we signed Carlton Morris about 3 days ago. So
yeah, but do you not think, okay, was that not a surprise? Like, I'm not saying they're like for like, but how often do you sign a big forward and you combine them with a smaller guy? You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have, it's going to be a terrifying forward line in terms of the size and the presence. And I do think that's where Pat's a little bit different. He's not going to be just a hold up guy. He likes to turn and run and get into back lines. He likes to drift wide. There's been times where I've seen him pick up the ball on the wing, that kind of thing. He's not great in the air, honestly. I think I only remember him scoring like 2-3 headers, which is interesting for someone that's like 6+. But that's what you've got another attacker for, I suppose.
Yeah, well, that's it. And one thing I noticed, obviously, I've tried to watch every clip under the sun that he's been sort of uploaded with on YouTube, etc. And it seems to be that he's one of those players. He picks up the ball, like you said, from deep positions, and he just kind of drives. He either sits right on the shoulder and rolls his defender, or he seems to pick it up really deep and run with it. I mean, is that his game? Is that his full game, basically just carrying that ball?
His carrying is really impressive because you know how a lot of players might be quick off the ball, but then when they have the ball, they're slower. He's so explosive with the dribble. He's really smart with the touches to get him into dangerous areas. And I'll say this, and I'm sure Derby fans are going to get frustrated with it too. A lot of the time, at least in Major League Soccer, he struggles to get the benefit of the doubt with calls. I think because of his size, a lot of the time he gets called for fouls, maybe when he tries to spin and leaves that shoulder in a little bit. So those moments are difficult. I do think he's going to have to learn to adjust to the style of refereeing. I think that's a huge part of a player's game we don't think about a lot. We kind of think, oh, well, it's a foul, or it wasn't a foul. But at the end of the day, if you're consistently called for fouls with your style of play, you're going to have to learn to adjust. Is it fair that he's penalized more because of his physical presence? No, but it's nature of the game. But I think that he is underrated in that skill of being able to drive forward, to draw contact, to make defenders think. And he brings others into the game. And that final third decision making now of when he does get through, if he picks his head up and squares the pass to whoever else is around versus taking the shot himself, is how he can continue to elevate his game.
Yeah, I think the word unique is used quite a lot, isn't it? I think Mauricio Pochettino described him as that. I think when I was looking at a lot of articles I read, he seems quite a unique player. I was trying to think of players that you could compare him to, and I really can't think of many.
No, I think because of the skill sets he has, a lot of players are either big and they're targets or they're quick and they're sprinters. He can do a little bit of both. I think that he doesn't necessarily have one thing that stands out as absolutely amazing, kind of like the jack of all trades, master of none. But that's not a bad thing as an attacking player to have that diversity of skill set when defenders don't really know which approach you're going to go for him with.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about the amount of goals he scored. You've mentioned, some of the things he's done. But if you're going to pick one moment out where you think he sort of stepped up more than anything at Charlotte, what would it be?
At Charlotte, just being able to be that sub off of the bench, always having an impact. I think that a lot of players, it's tough becoming maybe a super sub, which was the name that everyone gave him early on. He really embraced that target and brought the right attitude. I think that told you a lot about his mindset and his composure. But then getting just the US men's national team call up was huge. I think earning the opportunity to represent the country was amazing, and scoring on his debut. I mean, I think he has 5 goals for the US men's national team now, which is amazing, really, considering where he started and his composure and growth in those moments. So I think being able to handle adversity, which is something he's had to do his whole career, when you look at his story, and then utilizing that adversity to motivate him to just fill whatever spot he's given, it is a really important trait, and something that he's just, everybody loves him. And it's so funny, but literally people adore this guy because he's just so likable, so positive, so optimistic. Even when Charlotte had, I mean, anyone that's followed MLS a little bit knows that it's been a rocky life for Charlotte FC in terms of 3 managers in 4 seasons. Right now they're struggling, but with every adversity, he uses it as growth. And I think he's the sort of player that every dressing room needs to bring that positivity. So I think he's a great fit.
I'm going to say, and on your point about the USA, yeah, it's 5 goals in 9 games for the US national team, which is, yeah, not a bad return at all, especially for a player coming to the championship. But you touched on it there, you touched on it at the start. You've had interactions with him, you've spoken to him before. John Eustace always makes a huge point about signing players that, you know, are a good guy in the dressing room, good person to be around. What was he like? How did he come across when you spoke to him?
Just humble, so grateful, like a family guy. I think it's funny. He was obviously announced as an MLS All-Star. Who knows what's going to happen with that now? But you saw that he involved his parents and his brothers in that moment. And I think that just kind of tells you who he is. He seems like somebody that just keeps family central, stays motivated, just a really kind person, always timed with the fans, which is huge. Charlotte obviously has a massive fan base when you look at the attendances at some of their Major League Soccer games. I mean, 70,000 plus fans sometimes, and he makes the effort to make sure everybody gets an opportunity for a picture. Everybody gets an opportunity to have their shirt signed. And I think that tells you he hasn't lost connection to where he came from, which when you see players, how often do we see players that have this instant rise to fame and they kind of get an ego, or they forget where they came from, or they don't have time for the fans or the people that make them who they are? Pat's always had that, even with the media. I mean, the generosity of time with us as media to sit down and chat with us. And I think the other part is understanding his limitations and weaknesses. That's got to be the hardest question in the world, right? When a person from the media like myself asks, hey, look, you're doing well, but where do you need to get better? And he would instantly be open about, hey, I'm very aware of this, and this that I need to do better. And that understanding of your flaws and that willingness to want to get better, to me, suggests that the sky is the limit. I think it's going to be a tough adjustment. As someone that, again, follows English football, it's not easy. MLS has some very good, strong teams, but the top to bottom of Major League Soccer, I think, still has a lot of work to do. And anybody that's played in English football knows how ruthless those fans are, how ruthless the environment is. It's going to be a lot of adjustment for him, but I think that his mindset will mean that he is able to face that adversity and turn it into something good.
Well, I hope you're right. I remember when John Duran moved to Villa from the MLS, and I remember I worked with some Villa fans at the time. We were watching YouTube clips, and I thought, this guy's rubbish. And then he came over to Villa and he looked really good. So, you know, Agyemang actually looks really good in the MLS. So hopefully he'll be even better when he comes over here. Let's just hope that's the case. And one final question for you, Jess. What do you expect him to do at Derby? And do you think he's going to succeed?
Oh, my heart just wants him. Like, I mean, it's like, I am just rooting for him. I joke with you about getting his jersey. I'm not that sort of person. I have my club. I'm not going to pick a player just to follow and be a fan of that team now, but I am rooting with him with everything I've got. I think he suits the style of play. I think he suits the ability for some directness. I think that actually sometimes a transition to Major League Soccer can be harder because the travel, because of the demands of the schedule. It's very strange here when you think about the fact that you can play a team that's 3 hours time difference, that's a 5-hour flight away, all of that. So I think he's going to enjoy having that. I think he'll be successful. I urge fans to give him a little bit of grace at times because it's not easy. But I think in the end, the physicality, the presence, the system that you've mentioned, wanting to play with 2 forwards, is going to really help him succeed. And I'm hoping that he can continue to grow and prove doubters wrong, and that he's worth every penny that you pay for him, because I know it's quite the splurge and it's a good piece of business from both ends. That's how I truly feel it. I think this was a time for Patrick to spread his wings. If he'd I think if Charlotte had clung on to him any longer, it was not helping him thrive in his career. And I think this is the next big step for a really good player that hopefully you can take care of.
Well, I hope you're right. I really, really hope you're right. Thank you so much, Jess, for joining us. Really appreciate it. If people want to see more from you, where should they go? What rogue clubs across the world, especially ones that play at the Club World Cup, should they follow as well?
Oh, absolutely. So at Jess Talks Footy on all social media, I cover Major League Soccer, I cover NWSL, I cover Club World Cup, US, everything. And I post a lot about Reading Football Club. So apologies in advance for that. They have been bought now, so I can maybe minimize my I was very much a little biased in trying to get Reading FC bought. It has worked and we were bought by Americans. I'm not saying that it was down to me, but I'm going to take a little bit of thanks. Yeah, and hoping to just continue to spread my wings with the zone. I was obviously doing coverage in the UK, so hoping to get some coverage back in the UK ASAP. So thank you for your time.
Great stuff. I really hope so. Thank you, Jess. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe. Please do give us a rating on Spotify, Apple Pods. You know what to do by now. Thank you very much. Hopefully, we've signed a world beater up front. Jess has given us a little bit of hope. So thank you, everyone, for joining us.